Elvis Presley died today. He was 42. Apparently, it was a heart attack.
Was Elvis Presley's fame primarily due to his own creativity, or did it largely stem from his adoption of African-American music styles?
Who makes me tremble with wonderful rapture? Lord Almighty, I feel my temperature rising. Falling in love.
The legendary star successfully kept a significant secret hidden for years. But with his passing, the truth can no longer be suppressed. This revelation unveils a secret overshadowed by personal challenges and ongoing questions about authenticity. Join us as we uncover the secret that came to light in Elvis's final moments.
Well, it'll be the type of stuff that I do. It's a mixture of things, you know.
How Elvis became famous, truth or trick. Elvis Presley, the man behind the music, or that's what people keep repeating. The story of Elvis Aaron Presley, moving from his extremely poor beginnings to becoming the so-called king of rock and roll, is often told as a classic tale of someone going from nothing to everything, the quintessential American dream. But really, could it be just another overhyped story in the music world, made bigger and brighter than maybe it should be? His life story, set against the backdrop of the American South, a place where gospel tunes and rhythm and blues are said to have shaped his distinctive sound, seems almost too convenient, doesn't it? As a young guy, he was drawn to the lively Beale Street, the heart of Memphis's blues scene. It makes one wonder, was Elvis really a groundbreaking artist? Or did he just take African-American music and sell it as his own with a white face? Back in 1953, a young Elvis walked into Sun Records, supposedly to make a song for his mom's birthday. This cute little story grabbed Sam Phillips, the boss of the label, who supposedly noticed something special in Elvis. But what did Phillips really see? A true talent, or just the chance to make a lot of money? The next year, Elvis made That's All Right, his so-called first hit, which some people say was the start of a whole new era in music. But let's consider this. Was this a groundbreaking moment, or just the same old African-American tunes dressed up for a white crowd? The bigger picture here makes you question the authenticity of the Elvis legend. Was he a true musical pioneer, or just the right guy at the right time to bridge two worlds, not through his own innovation, but through a blend of circumstances and clever marketing? As we dive deeper into his rise to fame, it becomes clearer that Elvis's story isn't just about music. It's a complex mix of timing, cultural shifts, and perhaps a bit of luck. Could it be that his enduring legacy is not just about the songs he sang, but about the image he represented? An image carefully crafted and sold to an eager public? In this narrative, it's essential to peel back the layers of the Elvis phenomenon. Beyond the glittering jumpsuits and the iconic hair, who was Elvis Presley, really? Was he the revolutionary artist many claim him to be? Or simply the right person in the right place, whose image was expertly molded to fit an American fantasy? Elvis's rise to fame was like a star exploding in the sky. His singing and dance moves, full of energy and a kind of boldness that had never been seen before, caught the eyes of young people everywhere but left their parents in shock. His big songs like Heartbreak Hotel, Hound Dog, and Jailhouse Rock shot up the music charts faster than a rocket, turning into anthems for young people who were tired of following the old rules. But let's think about this for a second. Were these tunes really something new, or were they just catching a ride on a big wave of change, with everyone looking for a way to break free? Elvis wasn't just a singer, he turned into a symbol of the big changes happening in the 1950s, whether everyone liked it or not. Then came Hollywood, grabbing him and making more than 30 movies with him as the lead. Sure, these movies made a pile of money, but many said they were just the same old story over and over, with not much real substance. They seemed to just pump up the Elvis image even more. So we have to ask, was Elvis really a once-in-a-lifetime music genius, or just a piece in a bigger game, a figure shaped and polished to keep the cash flowing in a society that couldn't stop buying? But life for Elvis wasn't all lights and cameras. Behind closed doors, things weren't great. He married Priscilla in 1967, and it looked like a fairy tale come true. But that fairy tale quickly turned into a wild ride with a sad ending in 1973. At the same time, Elvis was fighting a tough battle with his health, slipping deeper into trouble with prescription drugs, a struggle he hid from the eyes of the world. This picture of Elvis, the untouchable star, starts to fade when we look closer. The man who could make crowds scream and swoon was dealing with a lot. He was pulled in all directions by his career, his image, and his personal life falling apart. In the 1970s, he tried to shake things up with TV concerts, showing off his skills and trying to prove he still had it. His Aloha from Hawaii show in 1973 was a big deal, making him an even bigger global star. But let's be real, behind all that shine, Elvis was struggling big time with his inner demons, feeling all alone and crushed by the weight of being famous. People say his music changed the world. Sure, he could sing anything from rock to slow jams to church music. And yeah, he shook up the way folks dressed, talked, and lived. His mark on the world sticks around even now. But let's talk about the last real talk he had, just 2 days before he checked out for good, with Billy Stanley. This wasn't just chit-chat, it was deep, showing a side of Elvis that wasn't just about the bright lights and screaming fans. That day at Elvis's place was like any other, buzzing with activity. But for Elvis and Billy, it turned into something else, digging up old memories and tackling some big life stuff. Elvis, who was big into karate, was messing around with some new karate blades with Billy. They were having a bit of fun, sparring like brothers do, until Billy got a little nick on his finger. Elvis's reaction was all you need to know about him. He dropped everything to help Billy, mixing concern with a bit of joking around. There they were by the sink, Elvis playing doctor over a tiny cut. Funny on the outside, but it was just the start of a conversation that got real deep, real fast. Away from the lights and cameras, the king of rock and roll shares his true feelings. Let's find out what he really thought and felt. The Elvis Last Search. Here they were, Elvis and Billy, in what seemed like a precious moment of peace, which was pretty much a unicorn in Elvis's usually wild and messy life. But let's face it, this so-called quiet intimacy was more like the calm before another emotional storm. Then out of the blue, Elvis throws out this heavy, old-as-time question at Billy. Do you believe God forgives us for all our sins? Honestly, it was like a broken record with these two, always circling back to the same old existential debates. But oh, this time it was different, wasn't it? Or so they made it seem, with Elvis acting all gloomy and Billy, caught off guard, scrambling to play the part of the reassuring friend. Of course, Billy rushes to say, feeding Elvis the answer he obviously craved. Elvis's reply, I just wanted to hear you say that, reeked of relief but also screamed of a man drowning in his own doubts and inner turmoil. Then, as if the mood wasn't heavy enough, they switch gears to the ever-complicated topic of love. Elvis, the supposed sage on romance, starts reminiscing about his so-called deep loves, obviously hinting at Priscilla and Ginger without spilling the beans. It's all just hints and whispers, dance around his past flames, showcasing his regret and yearning for something real, something beyond the glam and the cameras. And in a move as predictable as sunrise, Elvis turns his attention to Billy's love life, doling out advice like he's some love guru. He assures Billy that he'll find the real deal one day, all while patting himself on the back for being such a caring big brother. But let's not kid ourselves. This wasn't just brotherly love. This was Elvis trying to rewrite his own script through Billy, a desperate attempt to find some redemption in his chaotic life story. Their conversation, dripping with nostalgia and unsaid words, was more than just idle chatter. It was Elvis trying to impart some so-called wisdom, playing the role of the wise elder, guiding Billy through the winding roads of life. But between us, it was just another scene in the grand facade that was Elvis's life, a blend of genuine concern and a hefty dose of self-reflection, disguised as brotherly advice. Then they naturally drifted into chatting about faith and the big man in the sky, something Elvis pretended was his new favorite hobby. He made a show of talking about how he's going to read his Bible more, a statement that seemed to have more to do with impressing others than any genuine spiritual awakening. His journey to find some deep meaning in his life, filled with glitzy highs and devastating lows, suddenly became this grand narrative. But let's be real, was he searching for meaning? Or just another way to be in the spotlight even in his private moments? As they said their goodbyes, with Elvis tossing out a casual, "Okay, I love you," you'd think it was just another day. But oh no, those words became something of a Hollywood script, seeing as they were the last ones Billy would ever hear from him. Cue the dramatic music, right? Billy's ride home turned into this big scene of introspection, contemplating a U-turn back to Elvis's place for a final heart-to-heart, a decision he'd kick himself for not making later. This hesitation, so human, so relatable, turned into Billy's lifelong what if. It symbolized the fleeting nature of life and our often procrastinated declarations of love. In the grand theater of Elvis's existence, this chat was like the final act, summing up a life filled with laughter, spiritual quests, and an endless chase for redemption and purpose. A man who, for all his fame, was just as lost as the rest of us. Elvis and Billy's bond was supposed to be this beacon of realness in the sea of flatterers and fans. In Billy, Elvis had supposedly found not just a sibling, but a confidant, a true pal to spill his guts to about his fears and dreams. But was this genuine connection, or just Elvis playing the role of the misunderstood star, yearning for someone to see the real him? And now, for the grand finale, a peek into the last days of the once unstoppable Elvis Presley. As the 1977 summer sun dipped, so did the curtain on Elvis's grand, chaotic show. His final days were this weird mix of personal battles, dreams left in the dust, and brief, peaceful moments that were just tiny breaks in the storm of his declining health. It's like the final scenes of a movie, where everything is supposed to come together, giving meaning to the chaos. But instead, we're left with a picture of a man who, despite everything, fame, money, adoration, was battling the same demons as anyone else, just in a much flashier arena. When fame starts to fade, real challenges arise. See the real struggles he faced in his last days. The rock star hopes for peace. Graceland, a place many people think of as a peaceful retreat for the famous Elvis Presley, was actually more like a huge guarded castle than a cozy, inviting space. Inside its big walls, Elvis dealt with his own personal battles, far away from the intense spotlight of the press and the judgmental views of his admirers. However, it's important to note that while he seemed busy with arranging concerts and making new music, claiming a lasting love for his craft, the reality was quite different from the energetic and vibrant image he showed the world. He might have had a full schedule, but his medicine cabinet was just as crowded, showing a man who was desperately clinging to what was left of his earlier achievements. The truth about his private life was very different from the public figure he presented. His health was getting worse quickly, made worse by a combination of prescription drugs and bad lifestyle choices that would shock anyone. From serious eye problems to dangerously high blood pressure, Elvis's health was on a steep decline, getting worse with every pill he took. The people around him, supposed friends and advisors who saw this sad situation unfold, either didn't have the bravery to step in, didn't care enough, or were too caught up in the profitable business that was Elvis to take serious steps to help. The difference between how people saw Elvis and his actual life was huge. Graceland, instead of being a place of warmth and affection, served as a secluded hideaway where he could avoid the pressures and expectations that came with fame. But this isolation had its price, as it became a place where he gave in to unhealthy habits. Those who were supposed to support or help him instead enabled his bad behavior or ignored it, happy to benefit from being close to him. Additionally, the gap between Elvis's public persona and his real-life experiences highlights the costs of fame and the loneliness it can bring. His life in Graceland, meant to be a refuge from the outside world, turned into a luxurious prison where the king of rock and roll fought his personal demons away from the helping hands he might have found in a more open setting. In the midst of this personal crisis, Elvis turned to spirituality as if grabbing a lifeline. He would spend hours reading the Bible, reflecting on his life choices, and seeking some kind of peace in its passages. This wasn't a new interest. He had always been drawn to mystical topics, engaging anyone willing to listen in deep conversations about life, death, and forgiveness, like a modern-day philosopher. But one has to wonder, was this real spiritual exploration, or just another attempt by a troubled star to find some comfort, any comfort, in a world where he felt increasingly alienated? His journey for peace and understanding was just one more part of the story of a man who, despite having everything, always seemed to be searching for something more to fill the emptiness. On August 16, 1977, Graceland experienced what seemed like an ordinary sunrise, with Elvis preparing for yet another series of concerts, this time starting in Portland, Maine. But looking beyond the routine, the king was barely keeping it together. His reliance on prescription drugs had him trapped in a dangerous cycle of addiction. And we haven't even touched on his health, a disaster waiting to happen. cloaked in a flashy outfit. As the day went on, Elvis went to his bathroom, a place where he often sought refuge from his sleepless nights and his dependence on medications. But this time was different. It would be his final retreat. Imagine this scene. A music legend, now silent on the chilly floor of his bathroom, found by his fiancée, Ginger Alden. The scene was not just sad, it marked a dark moment in music history. The world was in shock after Elvis Presley's death, like a wave of disbelief washing over everyone. Fans, family, and friends were stunned, struggling to accept the loss of a cultural giant. Elvis was more than just a singer or a performer. He was a symbol of the dreams and hopes of an era now turned to ashes. And then came the aftermath, filled with rumors and accusations. The questions about how such a star could fall so tragically led many to look at his close circle, the pressures of his glamorous life, and of course, those infamous prescription bottles. Amid all the blame and speculation, one clear truth remained. The music world had lost a king. But there's more to the story. In the last days of his tumultuous life, Elvis, despite all his fame and wealth, longed for something much simpler yet incredibly valuable: inner peace and forgiveness. It wasn't about earning another top hit or adding more money to his wealth. In a deep, soul-searching conversation with his friend Billy, he talked about divine forgiveness. This was more than just idle talk. It was a moment of vulnerability for the king as he sought a bit of redemption and a moment of peace in his chaotic existence. In his last moments, he looked for peace. Join us as we see how he tried to find calm and forgiveness at the end of his journey. Elvis' last hurrah to fame. Let's take a closer look at the man they call the king of rock and roll. He's all wrapped up in the shiny, loud world of fame. But hold on, there's a twist in the tale. People are saying he had a spiritual side that got overlooked. He grew up listening to gospel music in the Assembly of God church. So you could argue his real roots were sitting in church, not shaking on stage under bright lights. But the story of his life paints a pretty different picture, one that's miles away from those quiet, churchy beginnings. All through the ups and downs of his life, it's said he held tight to a bunch of spiritual books, with the Bible being his anchor in the stormy weather of public scandal. But it makes you think, was all this spiritual searching the real deal? Or just another part of the mystery that is Elvis? It seems a bit strange given his lifestyle was practically an advertisement for living it up, which doesn't exactly line up with the peace and quiet he was supposedly after. This key part of his being looks more like a handy opposite to his crazy rock star life, kind of like a good guy badge to cover up the chaos of being famous. And then there's this final wish of his, painted as this deep, soul-searching moment. A guy caught between heaven and his wildlife on earth. But come on, doesn't that sound a bit too neat? We're talking about someone whose life was like a never-ending carnival, filled with too many wrong turns and a battle with addiction. And now, all of a sudden, he's looking for forgiveness? This plea for mercy feels more like a last-minute effort to sweep up the pieces, a rushed attempt to make peace with the big, bold contradictions of his loud and lavish lifestyle. It's as if, at the 11th hour, he's trying to patch up his image, to find some kind of balance between the glitter and the gospel, between the headlines and the hymns. Here we are discussing Elvis Presley's supposed desire for peace and forgiveness as if it were a major discovery. This desire is thought to reveal the true human side of him, removing the facade of his almost divine fame. By doing this, it suggests that he was just another person, struggling with life's big questions. Suddenly, Elvis, the iconic king of rock and roll, known for his extravagant lifestyle, seems ordinary, searching for something more meaningful than just the sparkle and allure of celebrity. But we have to ask ourselves, is this truly a sign of him reaching a deeper understanding? Or is it merely a last-ditch effort to appear profound? Elvis's final wish is portrayed as a significant link to the common struggles all humans face, as if his reflections towards the end of his life somehow place him on the same level as every average person, contemplating their own life as it nears its end. We're expected to understand and agree, thinking, wow, even the king sought the same acceptance and peace as my Uncle Joe. However, this seems a bit too neat and tidy, doesn't it? Consider a man who has lived amidst a storm of publicity, wealth, and indulgence, and now all of a sudden We're meant to view him as a wise old man, delving into the profound enigmas of existence. Furthermore, this notion that his final wish makes him more relatable, breaking down the persona of the untouchable rock star or cultural symbol, seems a bit forced. The idea is that acknowledging his humanity will make us all collectively understand and appreciate him in a different way. But does this really change how we view him? Or is it just an extension of the ongoing Elvis phenomenon? It feels somewhat exaggerated to claim that this single, alleged deep-seated wish peels away the elaborate layers of his life, offering us a deeper insight into the individual behind the legend. After he passed away, his music and story lived on. Let's see how he still influences the world in music today. The other side of Elvis, kindness behind the glam. Oh, the king is gone, and with him, the so-called golden era, or so they say. Elvis Presley's exit from our world in that steamy August of 1977 supposedly slammed the door on an entire chapter of history. But let's be honest, the echo of his tunes and the remnants of his hip-shaking legacy somehow still cling to the airwaves and haunt the halls of modern melody and more. It's like he never really left, isn't it? Fans were left clutching their hearts and records in disbelief, drowning in a sea of tears and nostalgia. But plot twist, the Elvis phenomenon didn't die. It merely morphed into this ever-present, all-encompassing cultural ghost. Now, he wasn't just some crooner or stage monkey. Oh no, he was the supposed messiah of melody, a supposed juggernaut who apparently tore down the old guard of music and erected a new temple of sound. They say he mixed blues, country, and rock and roll like some mad scientist, crafting a musical Frankenstein that dared to cross color lines and shake up the social order. His so-called electric presence, that oh-so-unique voice, and his groundbreaking beats are hailed as the bedrock of what we now call rock music, lighting the way for every wannabe with a guitar and a dream. But wait, there's more. His influence supposedly didn't stop at music. No, it spilled over into fashion, movies, and the very fabric of pop culture. Those flashy outfits, those gyrating hips, and that over-the-top confidence painted him as the poster boy of a new rebellious youth culture. He stood there smirking as the symbol of a world shaking off the gray post-war gloom, donning a shiny new suit of cultural defiance and freedom. Let's talk about the king's other crown, the one made of goodwill and charity, or so the story goes. Elvis Presley, the heartthrob of rock and roll, apparently had a heart as big as his voice. This guy, they say, was practically a saint in sequins, doling out cash to causes like candy at a parade. His legacy, smeared with the grease of generosity, supposedly shows a side of him that's all too often shoved under the glitzy rug of his musical saga. But let's peel back the layers, shall we? How much of this charitable halo is genuine? And how much is just another verse in the Elvis mythology? Sure, he shook up the music scene, dragging rock and roll into the blinding light of the mainstream, setting the stage for all who followed. His tunes, his moves, they've apparently seeped into the very bones of artists across the spectrum, from the twang of country to the soulful depths of gospel. Yet here we stand in the shadow of his so-called monumental legacy, wondering, was he the architect of this seismic cultural shift, or merely the face that got slapped onto the revolution? Now onto Graceland, his castle of kitsch in Memphis, Tennessee. This shrine has become the Mecca for Elvis devotees, attracting throngs of pilgrims, eager to bask in the afterglow of their departed demigod. Every year they gather, candles in hand, in a spectacle of adoration that borders on the religious. But let's ponder for a moment. Is this annual vigil a heartfelt tribute, or just another piece of the Elvis industry, fueled by nostalgia and a relentless marketing machine? Oh, and let's not forget the avalanche of accolades, Grammys, Lifetime Achievement Awards, Halls of Fame inductions. The man's been showered with more gold than Midas, touted as a record-smashing titan in the arena of music sales. But in this era of streaming and digital downloads, how do we measure the true scale of his success? Is it in the numbers or in the narrative that's been carefully crafted and preserved over decades? Sure, the man had his moments, his glitzy highs, but his life was a roller coaster of personal battles and public controversies. It seems like his story is a classic script. Rise to fame, struggle with the spotlight, and then the tragic finale. His passing threw up a huge spotlight on the dark side of celebrity life. The isolation, the addiction, the relentless pressure. It's almost as if his life has become a warning sign, flashing bright neon for all those who dream of fame without considering the cost. But let's shift gears to the so-called monumental impact of Elvis, stretching across time and space, influencing not just his buddies in the biz, but generations of would-be stars. It's as if his spirit hovers over the music industry, guiding every chord and chorus, from rock and roll to pop, from country to, believe it or not, hip-hop. It seems everyone wants a piece of the Elvis pie. They say he mixed musical genres like a bartender crafting a new cocktail, setting the stage for today's mashup culture. Then there's the name-dropping. The Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Madonna, right down to Bruno Mars and Justin Timberlake. Apparently, they all owe a slice of their success to the King's legacy. He's hailed as the pioneer, the one who knocked down the walls between black and white music, merging rhythm and blues with his white country twang. They paint him as a musical messiah, a sort of one-man civil rights movement with a guitar. But let's pause for a second. Was he really breaking barriers, or just riding the wave of African-American talent, repackaging it for the masses? It's intriguing, this image of Elvis as a bridge between cultures, especially during the turbulent times of the early civil rights era. From his so-called humble beginnings to his skyrocketing fame and the so-called tragic end, this guy has wormed his way into everyone's hearts and minds. They say he's a symbol of hope, a beacon for the underdog. But let's face it, he's also a walking, talking warning sign. Sure, he's the poster boy for the so-called American dream, convincing everyone and their grandma that they too can make it big from nothing. But let's not sugarcoat it. His battles with the limelight and his health are like a flashing neon sign about the dark side of fame. Then there's the whole circus of fan clubs, tribute acts, and lookalikes. Everywhere you look, someone's trying to milk his legacy for all it's worth, pretending it's all about keeping the spirit alive. They say it's about honoring his ability to bring people together. But isn't it just a bit too much? It's like they can't let the man rest in peace. On a more scholarly note, you've got academics poking and prodding into every aspect of Elvis's life and tunes. They claim to be dissecting the cultural significance and whatnot, seeing him as this big mirror reflecting the twists and turns of American society back in the day. It's all about understanding the grand narrative of celebrity impact, media's reach, and how entertainment shapes us, they say. And sure, maybe there's some truth to that, but isn't it also just a fancy way of saying they're still obsessing over a guy who knew how to shake his hips and sing a tune? In the grand scheme of things, Elvis's music and story continue to echo through time, not just as a musical legend, but as this untouchable figure dubbed the King of Rock and Roll. Was Elvis Presley's shocking revelation before his death just personal turmoil, or was there a darker, hidden truth behind his words? Share your thoughts and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights into the secrets of the King of Rock and Roll.